بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. The fifth section, the author rahimahullah says شروطه, the conditions of al-i'tikaf. In order for al-i'tikaf to be valid, in order for it to be sahih, in order for it to be a step closer to being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a step closer for it to be valid. What are the conditions that must be fulfilled with regards to al-i'tikaf? The mu'allif rahimahullah, the author, he says, في المعتكف أن يكون مسلما مميزا طاهرا من الجنابة والحيض والنفاس فلا يصح من كافر ولا صبي غير مميز ولا جنب ولا حائض ولا نفساء. He says that the mu'takif first and foremost has to be Muslim. He has to be a Muslim. If a kafir decides, I want to come in the masjid and sit and make itikaf and try out Ramadan with the Muslims, like some Muslims do. Some non-Muslims, they do this. I know a non-Muslim like this. He became a Muslim after he fasted the month of Ramadan. Years ago in Philadelphia, he was a customer in a barbershop, and he would come in and discuss many things. And among the things that he would discuss was Islam. And one day he said, I admire you guys, how you fast. You don't drink, you don't eat the whole entire month. He says, I'm thinking about Islam. Let me try it out. So I said, you might as well be a Muslim. He said, but I want to try it out first. A test drive, a test run. So he did it. And then shortly afterwards, Allah opened up his chest and he became a Muslim. So let's say somebody wanted to say, I want to come to the masjid and make itikaf. If they do that, then the itikaf is invalid. It's invalid. It doesn't count. It's not nowhere near being accepted. So a person has to have Islam, like all other acts of ibadah. He says here, but however, just because something is an act of ibadah doesn't mean that it's invalid in other aspects, such as buying and selling, such as marriage, inheritance, guardianship, certain things in which a Muslim lives among, a non-Muslim lives among Muslims, in which there's a Christian or a Jew or a Zoroastrian, a fire worshipper, or even a mushrik, other types of mushriks, whatever. He lives among non-Muslims, or he lives among Muslims. A non-Muslim is living among Muslims. This is his property. He can do this. This is valid in the Sharia. It's valid, even though he isn't a Muslim. But when it comes to ibadat, actual worship, devotion, then he has to have Islam for it to be valid. Everybody understand the difference? He has to have Islam for it to be valid, such as zakat. Can a child, or does a child have to pay zakat on his wealth? There's an orphan. His father died and left him millions of dollars. Is zakat due on the child's wealth? The child is not of age. He's not held responsible. He isn't liable for his deeds. Is it mandatory for the zakat to be paid? And is it valid if the zakat is paid? And he's beneath the age of adolescence. There's a difference here. But here we have an issue in which the person has to have Islam for the act to be what? Valid. And there are other acts in which a person can do something in Islamic law and it's valid without Islam. Or it's valid without proper age. Because there are conditions for acts being obligatory upon you. And from those conditions is Islam, sanity, and being of age. Everybody understand this? It's a difference. It goes in and it goes out. Those are the main three conditions for most things that you do in Islam. You have to be Muslim, you have to be sane, and you have to be of age. But there are other instances and other times in which a person may be insane, but there is something which is still mandatory upon him in the deen. Everybody clear on this? Someone is not of age, but there's something which is mandatory upon them and valid. And the person may not have Islam, and they're allowed to make the transaction or the dealing in the what? Sharia. It's legitimate. It's Sharia compliant, even though they don't have Islam. Everybody understand the difference? Al-i'tikaf, he says, no, we have to have Islam. And then they have to be mumayyiz. The person has to be at least of the age of 6 or 7. 5, 6, 7, or 8. They have to be of the age in which they understand basic things that are going on. I.e., if there's a child, a baby, a toddler, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, difference from child to child, they can make it itikaf, but the author says it's invalid unless they know what's going on. They don't have to be pubescent. They don't have to be 12 and 14 and 16, but they have to be of an age in which they understand the basics of what they're doing, and that's called a tamyiz. The child who prays at the age of 7, prayer is not obligatory upon them. But it's obligatory upon the guardian to tell them to pray. And if they make the prayer, then it can be valid. If they make the Hajj, it can count for a voluntary Hajj. They have to be of the age of what? Tamyiz. And not just a baby that has no clue of what they're doing or where they are. Like fasting. Child starts off fasting, and then later they eat, they drink, they don't know. But a 7-year-old or maybe an 8-year-old, depends on the child, how you raise the child, the maturity, the intelligence, the genes. But a 9-year-old child clearly knows, 10-year-old child is supposed to know, there's no eating. There is no play, eat, play Ramadan. No, there's fasting until what? Sunset. Hunger, thirst. Can I eat? Abby say, no, can't eat. So that is the age of what? A tamyiz. The age of tamyiz. Can a child lead the salah and the prayer? A 4-year-old versus an 8-year-old. The 8-year-old is not in puberty. But they're of the age of what? Tamyiz, in which they understand the basics of the prayer. And they know that it's not a game and a joke. You can't talk in the prayer. And there are hundreds of other issues in which there's a child who's of this age, in which certain things count. Certain things are valid, even if they're not necessarily what? Obligatory. Like fasting. You don't have to fast on the 8. You don't have to fast on the 10. You don't have to fast on the 11 and 12. But if they fast and they do it the proper way, then it's valid. It's what? It's valid. So the itikaf is valid from a young child, a young man or a young woman. Also, they have to be pure from sexual defilement. They can't be in a state of janaba, in which a person had intercourse. A person had intercourse. Obviously, this is with exceptions to having a wet dream. If a brother went to sleep or sister went to sleep, and imagine they woke up and they had a dream, a sexual dream, that's beyond their control. But if a person had intercourse, or if a person had made masturbation or any reason that caused them to have junaba, he says then their itikaf is no good. They have to be pure and free from that. And also from menstruation and from postnatal bleeding. A woman who's making itikaf and she has menses or postnatal bleeding, her itikaf is no good. And notice that the author, he did not mention al-istihada. He never mentioned irregular bleeding. He never mentioned irregular bleeding. A woman can have irregular bleeding, and when she has irregular bleeding, she's considered to be pure, as if she has no blood at all. But the natural, regular, standard blood from the monthly cycle or from childbirth is something which invalidates the i'tikaf, according to the author. He says, so therefore, the reversal of this is itikaf is invalid if it's done by a kafir, a child who's not of the age of discernment, someone who's junub, someone who's menstruating, and someone who is nufasa, a woman who had birth and she's bleeding 10 days, 15 days, 20 days after her childbirth. So those are conditions for al-i'tikaf. He then says, أركانه حقيقة الاعتكاف المكث في المسجد بنية التقرب إلى الله تعالى فلو لم تقع المكث في المسجد أو لم تحدث نية الطاعة لا ينعقد الاعتكاف. أما وجوب النية فلقول الله تعالى وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين وليقول الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. وأما أن المسجد لا بد منه فلقول الله تعالى ولا تباشروهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد. ووجه الاستدلال أنه لو صح الاعتكاف في غير المسجد لم يخص تحريم المباشرة بالاعتكاف في المسجد لأنها منافية للاعتكاف فعلم أن المعنى بيان الاعتكاف إنما يكون في المساجد. The pillars of i'tikaf, the things that must be done for the i'tikaf to be valid, but not before the i'tikaf, but actually during the i'tikaf. The conditions are things that come first, a prerequisite. You have to have these prerequisites to get this job, this paperwork, this age, this degree, before you get the job, before you get the scholarship. That's shurut, things that have to be fulfilled beforehand. You can't get it while you're studying and while you're working. I got my GED, I got my diploma. La. Prerequisite comes before. And then once you have the prerequisite, then there is a job description. Things that you have to do, a place that you have to remain in, a time that you have to abide by in order for you to be working or studying there. And those are the things known in the Islamic science of fiqh as arkan, pillars of the salah. The body of the prayer, the skeleton of the prayer, things that you must do inside of the prayer. And if you forget to do them, then the prayer is what? Invalid. No good. If you forget to do them, it's invalid. But the difference between the pillar and the prerequisite is that the pillar is what? No. During, exactly. And the prerequisite is what? Before. Bring in the paper. The necessary paperwork comes what? Before you get the job. Once you get the job, you have to be here at 9 a.m. You have to clean this. You have to wash this. You have to do this. That's the rukn. And if you don't clean or you didn't, then you're not getting what? Paid. Everybody understand this? So there are pillars of al-i'tikaf. And the first pillar is that, he says here, the reality of i'tikaf is staying in the masjid with the intention of getting closer to Allah, as we explained. With the intention of getting closer to Allah. So if a person didn't remain in the masjid, or a person didn't have the intention, then there is no what? There's no i'tikaf. Two. You have to have the intention while you're there, and you must what? Be in the masjid. So the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he quotes the dalil regarding the obligation of having the niyyah. Allah says about the Jews and the Christians, the only thing that Allah asked them to do was to worship Him alone without partner, be sincere in their deen. And the Prophet ﷺ's statement, deeds are only based off of intentions, and every man will receive what he intended. Every man will receive what he intended. As far as the masjid, Allah says, وَلَا تُبَاشِرُهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ. Allah says, and do not approach your wives. Do not have any type of conjugal visits or intimate relations with your wives while you're making i'tikaf in the masjids. So if the masjid wasn't the condition, the obligatory place for i'tikaf, and Allah wouldn't have mentioned it like this. Because you can make i'tikaf anywhere and don't go near your wife, in your house, traveling, in a tent, in the desert, whatever. Allah said masajid. So it's a must that a person make i'tikaf where? In the masjid. As far as a woman making i'tikaf in her house, in her musalla, then that's a different story. That's a different story. What we're talking about, the asl, the original default, is that the i'tikaf is to be done in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those are the pillars of i'tikaf. Two pillars. One is what?
Intention. And
second, sitting in the masjid. For however long or short a period that you intend to do. The next issue, he says, point 6, that we mentioned point 6, point 7. رأي الفقهاء في المسجد الذي ينعقد فيه الاعتكاف. What masjid can you make i'tikaf in? What is the masjid that you are allowed to make i'tikaf in? Can you make i'tikaf in any masjid? Big or small? Or does it have to be a specific masjid? A masjid in which there's Jumu'ah? Or can you make i'tikaf in a masjid in which there's no Jumu'ah? Do you have to make i'tikaf only in Masjid al-Haram, a Masjid al-Nabawi, a Masjid al-Aqsa? What are the conditions for the masjid or the masjid in which a person must make an i'tikaf in? The author, he says, اختلف الفقهاء في المسجد الذي يصح الاعتكاف فيه فذهب أبو حنيفة وأحمد وإسحاق وأبو ثور إلى أنه يصح في كل مسجد يصلى فيها الصلوات الخمس وتقام فيه الجماعة لما روي أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كل مسجد له مؤذن وإمام فالاعتكاف فيه يصلح. رواه الدارقطني. وهذا حديث مرسل ضعيف لا يحتج به. وذهب مالك والشافعي وداود إلى أنه يصح في كل مسجد لأنه لم يصح في تخصيص بعض المساجد شيء صريح. وقالت الشافعية الأفضل أن يكون الاعتكاف في المسجد الجامع لأن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم اعتكف في المسجد الجامع ولأن الجماعة في صلواته أكثر ولا يعتكف في غيره إذا خلل وقت الاعتكاف صلاة الجمعة حتى لا تفوته. He says that the scholars of Islam, they don't agree on this point, on which masjid is allowed for one to make i'tikaf in. Some of them hold the view that a person can make i'tikaf in any masjid in which the 5 daily prayers are made and the congregation is established. The congregation is established and the 5 daily prayers are done. And this was the view of Imam Abu Hanifa, also Imam Ahmed, also Imam Abu Thawr, Imam Ishaq ibn Rahaway, and others. And they based it off a hadith that states every masjid that has a mu'adhin and an imam, then one is allowed to make i'tikaf therein. Kullu masjid, every masjid has a mu'adhin and an imam, then you can make i'tikaf therein. But the author says this hadith is not authentic. It's collected by Imam ad-Darqutni rahimahullah ta'ala in his Sunan. Why would they take the view based off of this da'if hadith? What are the rulings on that? We don't have the time to discuss that right now. Abu Talha, the usul of the fuqaha concerning using proofs and evidences. That's the proof that they use at the end of the day. He says Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, and also Imam Dawood ibn Ali al-Zahiri, they say that a person is allowed to make i'tikaf in any masjid. In any masjid. because there's no authentic proof that specifies this masjid from that masjid. So any masjid there is, i'tikaf is valid. Whether there's congregation, whether there's jama'ah, whether there's jum'ah or not. If it's a masjid, then a person can make what? I'tikaf in that place. As far as the Shafi'i scholars, not Imam Shafi'i, the school, the students, the disciples, then they held the view that the best place to make i'tikaf is a place in which there is a major Friday congregation. A major Friday congregation called Al-Masjid Al-Jami'. Not a small little musalla, a small little masjid, but a masjid in which there's a huge congregation for Friday. And the wisdom behind that is clear and simple. If a person is making i'tikaf in a musalla or small masjid, our masjids today, most of our masjids in the United States are actually musallas. If he's not making it in a place in which there's a jama'ah for Friday, then he has to leave that place and do what? Go to Jumu'ah. And him leaving the masjid, walking or driving to another masjid is going to interrupt and disturb his i'tikaf. Everybody clear on this? It's going to interrupt and disturb his what? I'tikaf. So they say make i'tikaf in a place in which the imam is going to be there for Friday. Because a Muslim man has to make Jumu'ah with the conditions of Jumu'ah being mandatory. Everybody clear on this? So that's their reasoning. That is the way that they look at it. Also the Prophet ﷺ did that as well. طيب. وللمعتكف أن يؤذن في المئذنة إن كان بابها في المسجد أو صحنه ويصعد على ظهر المسجد لأن كل ذلك من المسجد فإن كان باب المئذنة خارج المسجد باطل اعتكافه إن تعمد ذلك ورحمة المسجد منه عند الحنفية والشافعية ورواية عن أحمد وعن مالك ورواية عن أحمد أنها ليست من فليس للمعتكف أن يخرج إليها وجمهور العلماء على أن المرأة لا يصح لها أن تعتكف في مسجد بيتها لأن مسجد البيت لا يطلق عليه اسم مسجد ولا خلاف في جواز بيعه وقد صح أن أزواج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اعتكفن في المسجد النبوي. The author, he then says that it's valid for the one making i'tikaf to call the adhan in the minaret. It's valid for the mu'takif, the one who's making i'tikaf, to perform the adhan in the minaret. Why is he bringing this up? What does this have to do with the rulings of i'tikaf? Why is he saying that it is valid? Why does he have to say it like this? It's valid for the one who's making i'tikaf to call the adhan in the minaret. Why is he saying this?
Because you see outside. You don't leave the perimeter of the masjid.
Because the minaret may be outside. Is it connected? Is it one door? Is it in the courtyard? The plaza? The piazza? Or whatever the case may be? Naam? Or not? Everybody clear on this? Obviously, if the masjid doesn't have a minaret, then there's no big deal. Or even here, if someone steps outside on a Van Wyck, can they do that? Because technically outside is what? It's outside. And you've left the what? Place of i'tikaf. Everybody understand this? So he goes on to explain what the ulama of Islam they say about this with regards to if the masjid has a courtyard, etc., like we just said. Also, he says most of the ulama, not all of them, Sheikh Mahdi, he says most of them, they hold the view that a woman is not allowed to make i'tikaf in the Masjidul Bayt, in the musalla or the prayer room or the prayer living room or the prayer basement or the prayer attic of her what? House. Of her home. Most of the ulama, they hold this view. And he says, and that's because in actuality that's not called a what? It's not called a masjid. It's not called a what? A masjid. And also the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they made i'tikaf where? In the masjid. So how can the Prophet ﷺ, just hypothetically speaking, not tackling the issue right now, but hypothetically speaking, the best place for a woman to pray is in her home. And allow his wives to do what? And be in the masjid and come to the masjid. Just think about that now. Think about what? Think about that. Ponder on that. For the Prophet ﷺ, who protected his wives, had jealousy for his wives, didn't want free mixing, so on and so forth, people to see his wives, so on and so forth. All of the reasons that they say, no, stay home, don't go to the masjid. Did the Prophet ﷺ, was he lacking in those issues? This is a very interesting point to think about now. One issue that they mentioned was he what? Lacking therein. Everybody clear on this or not? طيب. So the Prophet ﷺ, he had his wives make itikaf in the masjid. And the author says most of them say that a woman cannot do that in her home. Not all of them, as we explained. Some of them, they say she can do that. But most of them, they say what? It has to be in the actual what? Masjid. We're not here to discuss that. Is that permissible or not? Clear on that? Khair, inshallah. We'll stop here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad.